Hey, it's Shilpa Bharaskar here, and I'm just sorting out my old material. All notes and all those things accumulated over years and years from hundreds and hundreds of past seminars, workshops, study circles, classroom notes, and everything. Everything homeopathic under the sun that I ever attended. And all this material is from things I did way back in, about late 90s before I ever owned a laptop. So everything then was handwritten. And I decided to start clearing some stuff out of the way. And it sort of became a project. And the cool thing is, when I was sorting out that material, I found an old treasure. And I have not seen this for years. I mean, these sets of diaries, these are not just any diaries, they're like some pretty special patient diaries. And I actually made them when I was going through a very, very challenging phase in my journey of homeopathy in the first few weeks, first few months of starting my clinic. So, I started my clinic after having been through about 5.5 years of rigorous full-time medical degree in homeopathy from one of the top college in Mumbai. And then 1 year later, I did an internship in both conventional and homeopathic hospitals. But I was still struggling to really find my feet in practice. And I don't know about you, but for me, some of my really favorite approaches that I learned in school, that I saw in the OPDs, were just not working for all my patients. There was such a low success rate that I was really considering whether I should continue to pursue practicing it or I should simply give up wasting my time. Now, I did have those miraculous results, but they were so far and wide in between, I just could not get those consistently. And that was the time I finally decided to go. So that was my one last go, having that one last go. And I decided to go and start observing how these successful practitioners manage those cases in their everyday clinics. Not just what they spoke in theory, in seminars, in lecture rooms, but how they actually applied what they were saying out there in their clinics using those very approaches and manage those ups and downs. When a remedy that has been working well for months suddenly stopped working, or when an unexpected situation turned everything back to square one, did they stick with their favorite approach? Did they change it? How, when, what did they do? So what I did was I basically started assisting a couple of classical practitioners 2 days a week. That was the start. And then I also decided to work with some really successful but not so classical ones. So in a way, I ended up with practitioners at different stages of homeopathy. That's what I know that today, right? But every Sunday, for example, I went to someone whose default approach was giving mother tinctures in drop doses on a daily basis. And then there was the very next day, I attended a clinic of someone who was a big fan of using really high potencies on specific keynotes. And then I was also with those regular handyman practitioners who gave classical remedies in a classical way. And then I was with the Sankran group, where they work with delusion and sensation approaches. And so these diaries, these are the clinical notes of observations I extracted from those hundreds and hundreds of follow-ups and patients, and I wrote down those practical tips I collected from that day-to-day clinic during those follow-ups. So these are not the exact patient notes, but these are the extracts of the clinical practical gems which I collected from those patients. And I filled up pages and pages of material falling off these diaries, and I also have some thick copies like these all stapled inside in the pages as well. And then I went home and I used to organize these cases. And when I was organizing these cases according to remedy, I found a lot of revelations. One was that each type of practitioner attracted a specific type of patient. And then with each of these practitioners, they understood the same remedy in different ways or in their own specific way. So at the end of some diaries, like I have written down clinical Materia Medica for the remedy prescriptions at every stage, so to say, as I understand now. So natrum mur at stage 1 and natrum mur at stage 4. And this is something I could never ever learn from any repertory or Materia Medica out there, because they are notes from a walking, talking, dynamic Materia Medica. And some of those stage 4 practitioners took hours and hours of cases and recorded them. And then they gave me those, to create those transcripts for their seminars or whatever. And they were like hours and hours of recordings of these patients. And I thought, this is ridiculous. What on earth am I doing here? Is this really going to get me anywhere? I was like working for free with these people, and I hated spending that time doing those transcripts. But slowly I realized that I was getting something very valuable, because I could now start recognizing how these patients expressed a specific remedy at stage 4. And then there were those stage 1 practitioners who were emptying gallons of medicines, bottles and bottles of the same medicine in low dilution to their patients based on a clinical diagnosis. And I was dispensing them, and I thought I was crazy. I mean, on Sundays I was standing on my feet from 9 to 10 or whatever at night, and I was sort of writing those diagnostic symptoms down for the mother tinctures. And I thought I'm never ever going to do this in my practice. But you know what? I started recognizing the clinical diagnostic changes that these remedies got at stage 1. And that was something I never saw, those changes happening at stage 4. So, I thought about it and I realized obviously these practitioners at both ends of the spectrum are really doing a great job in their niches, because obviously their patients were coming back and there were successful stories, and the success at stage 1 was definitely quite different than the success at stage 4. But patients were getting results that they wanted. So obviously there was something I needed to take away from these different practices. So the remedy is the same, but the application and the expression is completely different. And so patients who came to stage 1 practitioners could never dream of going to stage 4, whereas those who went to stage 4 practitioners would freak out when they saw a stage 1 practitioner. And I did that for 1 whole year. So 7 days a week at different practices in different corners of Mumbai for 8 hours a day each day. And I filled about 8 to 10 such diaries of material that are like tatters now. And you know what? I didn't even refer them for the last so many years. But that time, that gave me that excellent training I could ever get. It was an excellent introduction to real life homeopathy, to know what really works and what does not, and why stage 1 approaches work the way they do. But who are the target patients and who are not? Who will be the worst patient to try stage 1 on? And who will be the worst patients to try stage 4 on? All that inside information that even those practitioners were not aware of, because they were so used to working with their typical patients in their own clinics. But it gave me the confidence to really go out and just tailor the homeopathy for that sort of specific type of patient. So I could actually look at it at a much bigger spectrum of patients. And I found the answer why my favorite approach was working in only one specific group and not in the others. And more importantly, what to do about it. Because I had a choice now. Either I could take it on or direct them to another appropriate practitioner who could take it on. So this was the precursor to the stages template that I today created. And it was the best return on investment of my time and effort, even though I felt I was wasting my time for half the, because I was sort of, everyone else, my colleagues were in full-time clinic, right? They were getting into hospitals, they were trying different things, they were trying to earn a living out of their homeopathic dream, and I was sort of wasting my time, so to say, if somebody looked from the outside. But you know what? That was the way I could build my homeopathic dream. And I don't claim to know it all or have seen it all. I'm not perfect, but I could touch thousands and thousands of practitioners in different parts of the globe in many ways. And I was inspired to build an academy today that has over 10,000 practitioners who are learning from a variety of trainers, all specialized in different approaches in the homeopathic network today. And more importantly, members like you are touching the lives of hundreds and thousands of patients together in different parts and corners of the globe, no matter what type of homeopathy or what type of practices you have and what type of homeopathy you're using, implementing in your practice. And it's all because of these patients' diaries which gave me those insights. If I hadn't suspended my disbelief and learned from people sort of with that sort of an approach and that sort of a mind of trying to understand what's really going on behind the scene, then it's like those real case studies were the key. It was not about one particular guru, because if it was just following one particular guru, then I would have just known one particular facet of homeopathy. And it's funny because I didn't really tell my other classical medical colleagues about it because I was embarrassed. I was assisting a polypharmacist and some weird intuitive practitioner and a layman practitioner who was crazy using high potencies and all these different out of the box things. But I did, and it gave me that basic jump start to know where this was coming from or where this was all going to and what's the landscape and what's the spectrum of everyday homeopathy, and the motivation to choose what I want to do and where my favorite approach lies in that whole spectrum. And where do the other approaches fit in? So if I hadn't suspended my disbelief in my homeopathic life, my life would be completely different. I don't know where I would be, what I would be doing, but I wouldn't be doing this homeopathic dream journey I'm pursuing. It wouldn't be having this homeopathic network that I have got today, and it wouldn't be making that impact through my homeopathy for my clients, for my students. So this is a treasure. And so coming back to you and your journey, remember what you learn in your school is just one facet of the bigger version of what is out there. So go out and experience that bigger dream. Connect with practitioners using different approaches. Learn from the masters at their art, but not their theory, their real cases. Don't be afraid to ask them those questions. Don't be afraid of going outside the box. And the moral of the story is that, the turning points in your life every time would be when you suspend that disbelief and you step into that bigger version of what you're doing, a bigger future of that. And so just go out there and rock it with your homeopathy.